This episode, the Dopamine Teen, Risk, Reward, and Rebel from the Synapse Mastery series, is brought to you by VizCurd Studio.
Welcome to the deep dive. You know, if you've ever just been completely baffled by teenagers, that whole roller coaster, right? The intense emotions, the skin issues, peer pressure.
Oh, yeah.
You're definitely not alone. I think a lot of us adults kind of just push down our own memories of those years.
It's easier sometimes, maybe. And for ages, the thinking was pretty simple. It's all just hormones, right? That's what causes all the physical stuff, the emotional swings.
Exactly. But science has really changed that picture.
It really has. There's been this, virtual revolution in understanding how adolescents develop. Scientists now know the brain isn't finished in childhood, not even close. It's actually still under construction all through the teenage years.
Still under construction. I like that.
Yeah, and what's really key is that different parts mature on completely different schedules.
Yeah.
So, you might have a teen whose brain processes some things totally like an adult, but other really important areas still developing.
So this deep dive is definitely for you, whether you're, a parent trying to figure out your teen, an educator looking for insights, maybe you're just curious about this, frankly, amazing time of life.
And teens themselves are super curious too. I saw this study, something like 88% of sixth graders' questions were all about the biology of puberty. They want to know what's going on.
That makes sense. So our mission today is basically to give you a broad overview, a general picture of the biggest brain changes happening between puberty and adulthood, especially the ones that help explain, the major emotional and cognitive challenges. Let's dive in.
Okay, so first things first, what even is adolescence? We kind of need a working definition.
Right. So biologically, it's that transition phase from childhood to adulthood. And the big signal, obviously, is puberty.
But puberty itself is all over the map, timing-wise. For girls, it can start anywhere from 8 to 14. Boys, maybe 10 to 15. It's super variable.
And it's not like everything matures at once, right? The body traits develop in this unpredictable sequence over several years.
Yeah. Exactly. Unpredictable is the word. There's this psychologist, Dr. David Walsh. He calls adolescence an in-between stage. You're not a kid anymore, but you're definitely not an adult yet. It's this bridge.
A wobbly bridge sometimes.
Could be. And before puberty, hormone levels are pretty similar, boys and girls. Then, bam, the brain sends out the signal and the body starts churning out those sex-specific hormones.
And for males, that means testosterone kicks in big time. You get the maturation of the testes, scrotum, leading to viable sperm.
Then there's that huge growth spurt, right? 2 or 3 years of shooting up, shoulders broadening, getting much stronger.
Yep. And the hair patterns, genitals, underarms, face, chest, the voice deepening, that lovely cracking phase.
We've all been there or heard it.
And yeah, the oily skin, the acne, which it's important to say isn't about greasy food. It's the hormones telling the oil glands to work overtime. Plus, more body odor, fun times.
It's a package deal. And for females, estrogen's the main player. It drives the maturation of the uterus, the ovaries leading eventually to menstruation, ability to get pregnant.
Yeah. You also see those secondary sex characteristics develop: curvier body shape, larger breasts, wider pelvis, body fat shifting around hips and thighs.
And similar stuff with hair, pimples, body odor, just like the guys. It's really a complete biological overhaul for everyone.
Okay, so massive physical changes. But it's not just physical, is it? The way teens think changes dramatically, too.
Oh, absolutely. This is where Jean Piaget's work is so foundational. He showed thinking skills develop in stages, and adolescence is when we hit what he called the formal operations stage.
Formal operations. Sounds serious.
It kind of is. It's when teens start thinking abstractly, really abstractly, almost like a scientist, considering all the different variables and possible outcomes.
Like that example of Betsy obsessing with her dad about dating scenarios. But what if this happens? What if he says that? She wasn't planning anything, just exploring every single hypothetical.
Exactly. That's abstract thinking in action. And it allows for way more sophisticated reasoning, like deductive reasoning.
So drawing general conclusions from specific things.
Precisely. Like the Turenne example. As a kid, her friend's uncle died, and she felt really sad. But as a teen, she could step back and realize, okay, this deep sadness, it's a universal thing when you lose someone you care about. It's a bigger concept.
That's a big leap in understanding.
It is. And this stage is also crucial for figuring out identity. Teens start trying on different behaviors, different viewpoints, trying to figure out who they are, what they value.
Which I bet can cause some parental anxiety.
Oh, for sure. Panic, sometimes. But it's actually a really important struggle for them. And interestingly, not everyone fully reaches this formal stage. And things like science and math education might actually help foster it.
Okay, so thinking changes. What about the emotions? That famous teenage emotional roller coaster. There's this turmoil theory, right? That adolescence is just full of insecurity and rebellion.
Yeah, that theory paints a pretty extreme picture. And look, the teen years can be tough. They're grappling with big adult issues, ethics, sexuality, responsibility.
But it's not all turmoil for most teens.
Exactly. Most teens actually say they have supportive families, good friends, feel reasonably confident. It's really only a small percentage who experience that extreme turmoil, feeling really lonely or isolated.
But the moodiness, the occasional rebellion, that can be linked to the brain changes we're about to get into.
Absolutely. Those internal brain transformations often show up externally in their behavior and moods. It's all connected.
Okay, so let's get into the brain itself. This revolution in understanding, it really hinged on MRI technology, right? Magnetic resonance imaging.
Totally changed the game. You mentioned Lee's experience. Yeah, you're in this giant noisy machine, maybe feeling a bit claustrophobic.
But fascinated.
Right, because MRI gives us these incredibly clear, high-resolution pictures of the brain's structure without any harm, no dyes, no radiation. It let us see inside like never before.
And it wasn't just about getting static pictures, was it? The real breakthrough came from longitudinal studies.
Yes, that's the key. Like the work Dr. Jay Gee did. Instead of just averaging scans from different kids at different ages, which can be misleading.
Like looking at a bunch of different trees to understand how one specific tree grows.
Exactly. That's a perfect analogy. Gee's team scanned the same kids repeatedly, year after year.
Yeah.
That lets you see how an individual brain actually changes over time. You see the real growth pattern.
And what they found just blew away the old ideas.
Completely. For generations, people thought the brain was basically done growing by age 6 just because it reaches like 90–95% of its adult size then.
But size isn't the whole story.
Not at all. The new understanding is that the brain goes through this massive resculpting phase well into the early 20s. It's about reorganization, refinement, not just size.
Resculpting. Okay, how does that work?
Well, one major process involves the gray matter. That's the thinking part, the neurons and connections. There's this initial overproduction, a wave of new gray matter growth. But then it's followed by thinning, a reduction in volume.
Thinning. That sounds bad.
It's actually the opposite. Think about decluttering your closet. First, you dump everything out, right? Then you selectively get rid of what you don't wear or need. It makes finding an outfit way more efficient later.
Ah, okay. So the brain makes more connections than it needs.
Exactly. More cells, more synapses. Then it prunes away the ones that aren't being used much. It makes the whole system much more efficient. It's literally use it or lose it. Active connections get stronger, inactive ones fade or disappear.
Use it or lose it. Got it.
Yeah.
And while the gray matter is being pruned,
The white matter, that's the wiring, the axons connecting different areas, is actually growing steadily. This is mainly due to myelination.
myelin, that fatty sheath around the axons.
Right. And get this, an unmyelinated axon sends signals at maybe 4.5 miles per hour. But a myelinated one, it could hit speeds around 270 miles per hour.
Whoa. Okay, that's a massive difference. That's the efficiency boost.
Huge efficiency boost. Supercharges the communication speed. And mapping all this showed that different brain parts mature on very different timelines.
Okay, so what matures when?
Well, the basic sensory and perception areas, think sight, those cortical areas peak pretty early, around age 8.5.
Makes sense. Kids need to see and hear clearly.
Right. Then the frontal lobe, which handles stuff like motor coordination, attention, organizing behavior, that peaks later, maybe 11 or 12 years old.
Okay.
Temporal lobes involved in memory, recognizing objects, speech, they peak even later, around 16.
16, so still developing through high school.
Definitely. But the real late bloomer, the one that explains so much about teenage behavior, that's the prefrontal cortex.
The PFC, the brain CEO, right?
That's the one. It's the absolute last cortical region to fully mature. It doesn't reach its adult form until the early 20s.
Early 20s, wow.
Yeah. And since it's responsible for planning, judgment, impulse control, complex decision-making, its late development explains why teens might seem more impulsive, why they might lean towards immediate gratification. That executive override just isn't fully developed yet.
While the CEO is still in training, other parts are already pretty mature.
Exactly. Particularly the emotional centers. The amygdala that processes fear, rage, emotional memories, and the hippocampus, crucial for memory formation, they have growth spurts earlier, in childhood and adolescence. They're functioning in a more adult-like way much sooner than the PFC.
So you've got strong emotions firing, but the part that regulates them is still catching up.
Precisely. That developmental mismatch, revved up emotion centers without full executive control, likely explains why teens often react more intensely, more emotionally. Remember Jake in the football in his lunch?
Yeah, he remembered every detail because it was so emotional.
Right. His amygdala, likely buzzing with hormones too, just seared that memory in. Meanwhile, the cerebellum, which we used to think was just for coordination.
But it does more, right?
Yeah, now we know it's involved in higher thought too. Math, music, even social skills. And it keeps growing well into the early 20s as well. We're still figuring out exactly what that long development means.
So the big picture here is that this whole adolescent period, with all this growth and pruning and rewiring, it's now seen as a really critical time.
Hugely critical. A real window of opportunity to optimize brain potential. It's a time to really build the brain you'll have for life. Think about language learning. There's a critical period before age 7 for really mastering it. Adolescence might be a similar critical period for other complex skills and overall cognitive potential.
Okay, a window of opportunity. That leads nicely into training the teen brain, this idea of neuroplasticity.
Yes. Neuroplasticity, the brain's amazing ability to change its shape and function throughout life. It's not just fixed.
Like Sam learning that tricky running left-handed layup.
Perfect example. He struggled, practiced hundreds of times, and literally changed the circuits in his brain. Those repeated movements physically rewired things to send signals in that new, correct sequence. He trained his brain.
How does that work on a, cellular level?
It relates to something called long-term potentiation, or LTP. Basically, when brain cells fire together frequently, the connection, the synapse between them gets stronger. It's like that saying, cells that fire together, wire together. It physically changes the connection.
So practice literally makes the brain connections stronger.
Exactly. Early scientists thought adult brains were hardwired, but LTP showed that even adult nerve cells can be molded by experience. It's like wearing a path in the woods. The more you use it, the clearer it gets.
We even saw hints of this in those old rat studies, right? The ones with the fancy cages.
Yeah, the enriched environments.
Yeah.
Rats raised with toys, tunnels, things to explore. They actually developed significantly larger brains and were better at mazes than rats in standard, boring lab cages. It suggested that maybe a lack of stimulation could actually stunt brain growth.
And it's not just young brains that can change.
Nope. Dr. William Greenough found that even adult rat brains showed plasticity. Give them more activity and more stimulation, and their neurons grow larger dendritic fields, make more synapses. This helps explain why humans can sometimes make incredible recoveries after head injuries. The brain finds ways to adapt and rewire.
That's pretty amazing. And there was that monkey study, too.
Oh yeah, Dr. Michael Mersennick's study. Really vivid. Monkeys were trained extensively to use one specific finger to detect vibrations. And what happened? The area in their brain cortex dedicated to processing sensation from that specific finger actually got bigger.
Wow. So the brain map literally changed based on experience.
Exactly. It's Hebb's rule in action. Cells that fire together, wire together.
Yeah.
You use it, that brain territory expands or gets more efficient.
And we see this in humans, too.
Definitely. Think about people who read Braille. They use their reading fingers so intensively, hours a day, and the brain area representing that finger grows larger because of all that sensory input.
So the takeaway isn't necessarily that a bigger brain is always better.
Right. It's more about efficiency. Consistent training, mental, physical, emotional experiences makes the brain's machinery work better, makes it more resilient to stress or illness, helps it hold on to information.
And because the teen brain is such a work in progress,
Its care and handling are just extra critical. That use it or lose it principle is really powerful then. If you stimulate it, it grows and refines. If you don't, those unused connections can literally wither away.
okay, so use it or lose it. Now let's shift gears a bit to something really characteristic of teens, risk-taking.
Ah, yes, the thrill-seeking phase.
Remember Jeremy, 16 years old, bragging about driving down that super steep, curvy road without braking, with friends in the car, and he genuinely thought he wasn't doing anything that risky.
Yeah, that highlights it perfectly. The adolescent brain just evaluates risk very, very differently.
And a lot of that ties into the brain's reward circuit.
Absolutely. This circuit is fundamental. Its main job is to reinforce behaviors that are essential for survival, eating, drinking, sex, by making them feel intensely pleasurable. And the key chemical messenger for that pleasure is dopamine.
Dopamine, the feel-good chemical.
Pretty much. This circuit involves areas like the VTA, which makes dopamine, sends it to the nucleus accumbens, which is like a pleasure hotspot, and that signals up to the prefrontal cortex for the higher level processing.
And we know the circuit is powerful. Those rat studies.
Oh yeah, dramatic stuff. Rats would press a lever to electrically stimulate their own reward circuit, choosing it over food, water, even sex. They do it until they collapsed.
Wow. And there's human evidence, too.
There is. Some neurosurgery cases where stimulating presumed reward areas caused intense pleasure, one patient even reportedly fell in love with a surgeon. More commonly, fMRI scans show this circuit lights up when people experience things like romantic love, see something beautiful, laugh, even cooperate with others.
So it's not just about basic survival needs.
No, it's tied to lots of rewarding experiences. And dopamine levels are massively affected by drugs of abuse, which is a big reason why addiction is such a risk, especially for teens whose reward systems are still developing and maybe more sensitive or vulnerable.
Okay, so why is risk itself rewarding? Taking a chance feels good.
It seems so. Risk-taking, novelty-seeking, thrill-seeking, these things actually activate that reward circuit. Think about conquering a haunted house or riding a roller coaster. That fear mixed with excitement, that's your reward circuit firing.
And people have different levels of needing that thrill.
Totally. Marvin Zuckerman called it sensation-seeking. He argued that there's a genetic component. Some people are just naturally high thrill seekers, others moderate, others low. It explains why one person jumps out of planes and another finds that utterly terrifying. Different thresholds for what activates that reward buzz.
Like Johnny Knoxville versus...
Well, me. Huh? Exactly.
Hey.
Even in rats, studies showed their dopamine levels went up when they dared to go into exposed, open areas that usually make them anxious. The risk itself became pleasurable.
And human studies confirm this.
Yeah, Dr. Scott Matthews' fMRI study showed the nucleus accumbens that pleasure hotspot lit up when people chose a risky gamble with money, especially in those who scored higher on risk-taking personality tests. So yeah, risk is rewarding to the brain.
And this isn't just a weird human thing. Animals do it too.
Oh yeah. Increased novelty-seeking and risk-taking are seen across the animal kingdom in adolescence. Jane Goodall saw young chimps constantly testing boundaries. Adolescent rats are more likely than adults to explore those risky, exposed areas we mentioned.
Is there an evolutionary reason for that?
The thinking is, maybe yes. This biological drive to explore, to take chances, might be necessary for teens to gain independence, to venture out from the family unit, to find mates, establish their own territory. Risky, but maybe essential for development.
So adolescents are wired for some risk, but they also make decisions differently.
They really do. Compared to adults, they tend to weigh immediate rewards more heavily. They often downplay or overlook potential negative consequences, and they seem more motivated by the possibility of a reward than deterred by the possibility of a bad outcome.
Why? What's going on in the brain? There are a couple of theories, right?
Yeah, at least two prominent ones based on brain imaging. One study by Bjork suggested that when teens anticipated getting a monetary reward, their nucleus accumbens showed less activation than adults.
Less activation, so they feel reward less intensely.
That's one interpretation. The theory is maybe teens need bigger, more intense stimulation, bigger risks, to get the same level of dopamine buzz that adults get from smaller things.
Okay, that's one idea. What's the other?
Another study by Galvin actually found similar activation in the nucleus accumbens between teens and adults when the potential reward was highest. So this suggests maybe teens aren't necessarily less sensitive overall, but perhaps less motivated by modest or smaller rewards. They need the big score.
Interesting. So less activation needing bigger risks, or similar activation, but only for big rewards.
Right. But Galvin's study added a really crucial piece. They also looked at the prefrontal cortex activity during these reward tasks. In adults, the PFC activity was focused, specific. In adolescence, it was diffuse, spread out, looking more like a child's pattern.
Back to the immature CEO.
Exactly. That immature functional capacity of the PFC means that the impulsive, reward-seeking signals coming from the nucleus accumbens can kind of take over. There isn't that strong, mature executive oversight to weigh the long-term consequences and put the brakes on. It's a potent combination.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, related to all this emotion and impulsivity, let's talk hormones again. Their influence seems huge and maybe confusing sometimes.
Definitely powerful, sometimes puzzling. Think about Jillian, cheerful 1 minute, screaming rage the next, and then minutes later, she's forgotten why she was even mad. That's hormones having a direct impact on the brain.
How does that work biologically? the hormone cascade.
It's pretty complex, but basically it starts in the hypothalamus in the brain, which releases a hormone, GnRH, that tells the pituitary gland, also in the brain, to release LH and FSH. Those travel through the bloodstream to the testes in boys, telling them to make testosterone, or to the ovaries in girls, telling them to make estrogen and progesterone.
So the brain is orchestrating the whole thing.
It is. And crucially, the brain itself has receptors for these sex hormones scattered all over the place. So puberty hormones don't just change the body, they profoundly affect the brain too.
Where in the brain are these receptors most concentrated?
Well, the hypothalamus, where it all starts, has a lot. It plays a big role in basic drives and sexual behavior. There's even a specific area in there, the SDNPOA, that's larger in males, influenced by early testosterone.
Okay. What about emotional areas?
The amygdala, the fear and rage center we talked about, is loaded with receptors too. So when puberty hormones flood the system, it makes sense that they'd contribute to those intense emotional swings and maybe make emotional memories like Jake's football incident even stronger.
Right, searing the memory. What about the hippocampus? Memory central?
Yep, receptors there too. Since the hippocampus is key for forming long-term memories and also spatial memory, hormones could definitely influence how memories are laid down or retrieved. Maybe helps explain why a teen genuinely forgets half the chore list.
Convenient. Or maybe real. And the cerebellum, the coordination part.
Receptors there as well. Given its role in motor control, hormone surges during puberty could definitely contribute to that temporary awkwardness, the gangly arms and legs phase, as the brain and body try to recalibrate coordination.
It's fascinating how hormones fine-tune so much. And there's that idea about the brain's sexual identity.
Yeah, it's really intriguing. The current thinking is that the brain's fundamental sexual differentiation happens very early in fetal development. Exposure to testosterone masculinizes the male brain circuits. If there's no testosterone surge, the brain develops along a more female pathway by default.
And we see evidence of this in humans.
We do. There's a rare condition called testicular feminizing syndrome, or androgen insensitivity syndrome. Genetic males who can't respond to testosterone develop physically as females and often identify as female, suggesting that early hormone environment is critical for brain wiring related to gender.
So the brain's basic sex is set early, but then puberty hormones reactivate or re-express those differences.
That seems to be the idea. Those gender-specific behaviors and feelings really emerge strongly at puberty when the hormone levels surge again, interacting with that pre-programmed brain structure.
Wow. Okay, one more huge teen topic. Sleep. Or, more accurately, lack of sleep.
Ah, yes. The chronically tired teenager.
If you're a parent or remember being a teen, you probably know Kayla's story all too well. Always sleepy, staying up late, grades slipping. And yeah, electronics don't help.
They definitely make it worse. But here's the kicker. It's not just bad habits or laziness, although those play a part. There's real biological evidence now.
What's the evidence say?
It confirms that the main reason teens are so sleepy is that their internal biological clock, their sleep-wake cycle, actually shifts later during adolescence. It becomes physically harder for them to fall asleep early and almost impossible to wake up feeling refreshed early in the morning.
So their body clock is just different.
Yep. And sleep is incredibly important, right? It conserves energy, it restores glycogen, which is the brain's fuel. It helps consolidate learning. Studies show brain activity related to new tasks actually increases during sleep. And it's crucial for emotional regulation.
We all know how cranky we get when we don't sleep enough.
Exactly. Severe lack of sleep can lead to irritability, depression, even temporary psychotic symptoms in extreme cases. It's vital.
And the brain has a whole system to manage this.
It does. There's a part called the pons that manages active sleep, keeps muscles inhibited. But the master controller is a tiny spot in the hypothalamus called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the SCN. That's your body's internal pacemaker.
Or master clock.
Right. It tells another gland, the pineal gland, when to release melatonin, the hormone that makes us feel sleepy.
And light is key here.
Hugely key. Your eyes feed information about light and dark directly to the SCN. Light suppresses melatonin. Dark allows it to rise. That's why artificial light at night, especially blue light from screens, can really mess up your internal clock.
So what happens to the system in teenagers? The numbers are pretty bad, right?
They are stark. That National Sleep Foundation survey from 2006 found average sleep drops dramatically. Sixth graders got about 8.4 hours, but by 12th grade, it was down to just 6.9 hours.
And they need more like 9.
At least 9 hours is the recommendation from the NIH. So they're running a significant deficit, mostly because their bedtimes get later and later, but school start times don't change.
And they know they're tired.
Oh, yeah. Over a quarter reported falling asleep in school or doing homework. They feel it.
But trying to catch up on weekends doesn't really work.
Not effectively, no. Those really long naps, like over 45 minutes, or sleeping in super late on Saturday and Sunday, can actually make things worse by confusing their body clock even more, making it harder to sleep on Sunday night.
And the consequences are real bad grades.
Definitely linked. Students getting C's, D's, F's slept about 40 minutes less per night than AB students in one study, plus strong links to irritability, moodiness, and depression.
So back to the biology. Why does their clock shift? What's the proof?
The landmark research here is from Dr. Mary Carskadon. Her team studied teens in controlled lab settings, removing all outside time cues. And they found, clear as day, that in older adolescents, melatonin levels started to rise later in the evening and didn't fall off until later in the morning, compared to younger kids or adults.
So their brain is literally telling them it's not bedtime yet, and then telling them it's still nighttime when the alarm rings.
Exactly. Biochemically, their brain is screaming, sleep, at 7 a.m. They might not feel fully alert until maybe 9:30 a.m. It's a real biological shift.
And lifestyle makes it worse. Lights, screens.
Absolutely exacerbates it. Interestingly, older teens seem less sensitive to the alerting effects of morning light, but more sensitive to the sleep-delaying effects of evening light. So turning off those screens, dimming the lights well before bed, becomes even more critical to help your brain get the signal that it's time to wind down.
Okay, so putting this all together, what's the main takeaway for someone listening, a parent, teacher, anyone dealing with teens?
I think the biggest thing is, hopefully, a sense of understanding, maybe even comfort. Knowing that so many of these challenging behaviors, the moodiness, the risk-taking, the sleepiness, have a real biological basis in a brain that's actively, intensely developing. It's normal.
It's not just them being difficult.
Right. And it can be empowering, too. First key takeaway, that adolescent brain growth spurt. It's a massive window of opportunity. Encourage teens to use their brain in as many ways as possible, thinking, feeling, creating, doing. Every experience helps sculpt that developing brain. Maximize its potential.
But also, point 2, a growing brain is a vulnerable brain.
Critically important. Substance use, alcohol, marijuana, other drugs can have really lasting, potentially permanent negative effects during this sensitive period. Too much exposure to harmful things can derail that crucial development.
Got it. Third takeaway, risk-taking. We know it activates the reward circuits, and teens might need bigger thrills to get that buzz, partly because
the prefrontal cortex, the CEO, the Judgment and Impulse Control Center, is lagging behind. It's one of the very last parts to fully mature, probably not until the early 20s. So they literally do think differently about risk and consequences. Urging them to listen to that quietest voice of the developing PFC is key.
And those hormones, they're really influencing the emotional swings, the memory blips, even the clumsiness. That's takeaway 4.
Yep. Totally normal aspects of how hormones interact with the developing brain regions, like the amygdala, hippocampus, and cerebellum. It's part of the package.
And finally, the sleepiness. It's not laziness.
Not laziness. It's a biological clock shift.
Right.
Their brains are on a different schedule, which makes those early school starts incredibly difficult. Understanding that is huge.
So yeah, puberty and adolescence can be rough, no doubt. But with support, understanding,
and a growing knowledge of what's actually happening inside their heads. Most teens navigate it successfully. They come out the other side more resilient, more self-aware.
It really makes you think about that J.K. Rowling quote. Age is foolish and forgetful when it underestimates youth. There's so much happening beneath the surface. Keep exploring. Keep learning about this incredible journey.